Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. In this segment, we're going to talk about what are the tools that sales managers and sales leaders have to help them lead effectively. And your Sales SOS podcast crew is Daryl Prowl, Mike Simmons, Chris Bowen, Renee Bigelow, Bryn Tillman, and me, Liz Hyman. And so let's just dive in. What are the tools that sales leaders have and sales managers have to help them be more effective? What tools should they be using? What skill sets should they be using to manage and lead?
Okay, this is going to get, you're going to get a ton of answers on this. We're going to be all over the place. But the one place I will start with, and this is just where my starting point is whoever's in RevOps, become like best friends with them. One of the things I've always done in my sales leadership role is I've gone to the RevOps people and I've said, listen, I'm in 1,000 meetings. I can't look at all the dashboards all the time. I can't drill down all the time. I try to, I really do, but sometimes I don't. I need you to be my second set of eyes. I need you to build reports. I need you to tell me when forecasts seem janky to you. I need to know when it looks like a deal's about to close in 2 weeks' time, but they haven't called them in a month. I need to know all these little details. Can you just give me silent, indicators behind the scene on Teams, on Slack, or what have you? And by the way, if you're sitting in on any of these calls and they're completely blowing up the sales process, I need to know that too. Like, just be my second set of eyes and keep me in the know. That is like the number one place to go because I just can't do it all. I'll start with that.
Okay, I want to hang on. Mike, I know you have something to say. Hang on a second. So I want to just distinguish here for a second. Daryl just brought up a really good point indirectly, which is in a larger organization, in an experienced organization, they will have a RevOps team. Many companies haven't gotten to the point where they have a RevOps team. In fact, 20-year-old companies, 40, 50 million, $100 million companies that don't have RevOps teams. So what Daryl just told us is the things we need to be looking at and the things we need to be able to keep the pulse of numbers, sales process, sales activity, right? As a sales leader and as a sales manager, both, there are indicators you need to be watching all of the time in order to do your job. At the same time, you need to be having relationships with the people that you manage. So there's this balance between keeping a pulse on all of these indicators and keeping these relationships thriving. So Mike, I'll let you jump in.
I think about what I do as a leader. Just like what are the things that I have to do on a daily basis as a leader? I have to build a plan to achieve results. So one is build a plan to achieve results. So execute. Number two, sometimes I have to solve problems. Be involved in a problem-solving exercise. Three, make decisions. We have to make some kind of a decision. So we're building a plan to achieve results. We're solving problems. We're making decisions. And then the fourth one is communicate effectively. And if I could do all four of those things really well, then I'm going to be a good leader, whether it's a leader in a revenue role or it's a leader in another role. So for me, it gets back to those kind of skills. Do we have the skills, tools, resources, all of that stuff associated with being able to do those four things well? And if we don't, then let's address each one of those at a time, not try to do all four of them at once. Because when we try to do all four of them at once, we get ourselves into situations where we tend to apply scope creep to trying to do something that it's not intended to. So that's how I like to think about this.
I think we're like 5 minutes into this question and I'm still shocked that I haven't heard 3 letters. PRM.
I thought you were going to say KPI. So there you go. Which 3 letters?
CRM is also part of RevOps, and that's exactly where I'm going, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about CRM.
Because you can't have RevOps without a CRM. It's as simple as that.
So maybe it's a good idea to step back. There are tons of people who do have a CRM without a RevOps, though.
Correct.
So I thought maybe we could step back and talk about why companies who are more mature in newer sales methods are investing in a revenue operations team, right? This RevOps. And the reason is in order to make more data-driven decisions, we've become increasingly technical on anything that touches the customer journey. Like I often say that your marketing team is one of the most tech-heavy departments in your entire company. Next to that, in many cases, is sales. You will see a lot of tech running through sales because we're gathering data all along that customer journey that helps us make data-driven decisions, right? And if we're going to build these dashboards and we're going to have all of these things that we track KPIs on and understand where we are and how to forecast all of these things, that all has to come from a central place. The CRM tends to be the source of truth for the central place of data in most companies. And then from there, you have all these other things that you're doing. It becomes a specialty within sales and marketing, or a RevOps, if you have or customer success as well. It becomes a specialty to make sure all of that stuff is working together, and it doesn't take the time of every single person in sales and marketing to just run the software. So I'll kind of land it there and see what you all have to add on that.
I think that makes sense, but I think for me, one of the tools that you have as leaders, your one-on-ones. How are you leveraging those to understand how that individual, that's your chance to really, hopefully, get more from them, right? What is it that they need? How are you going to be able to help them? Where are the gaps? And not have it be as data-driven. Not that sometimes those conversations don't head that direction, but a lot of times you want to be able to understand, how am I going to get more out of this person? What is it that I need to be able to do? What is it that they need to be able to do that either they have a blind spot to, or we haven't put them in a position to be able to leverage that, right? So really being able to understand those aspects.
Okay. So let's back up for a second. So we're talking about 2 distinctly different things here. One is being able to collect, manage, and understand the data so we can make good decisions. The other is, again, this relationship thing. There's a stat that gets thrown around a lot, which is a manager should be spending, and this is true of any sales leader, at least 30% of their time coaching. That means in meetings. And we have this new kind of culture bubbling up, which is, let's not waste time in meetings. So, but we can't really be good leaders. We can't really support our sales team if we are not having meetings with them. Well, keep them in the field. They got to be on the field where they're working. Don't keep them bogged down in meetings. So this balance becomes really important. So when we're talking about meetings, there's 3 different kinds of sales meetings in my mind. Maybe there's more, but one is the team sales meeting. We have to have that. The second is one-on-ones, and one-on-ones can be broken down into 2 different things, which will make 3 kinds for me. One is this funnel review and coaching. Like, let's go through your funnel and let me coach you through, or your pipeline. Let me coach you through what we see. Let's talk about it. Let's come up with ideas. And the third is the one-on-one that is about, are you hitting your KPIs? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? What development plan do we need to have for you? And how do we get you there? And if we combine management and coaching at the same time, sometimes it's hard for our salespeople to hear us coach, because all they hear is, again, the bludgeon that you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do this and you have to do this and you have to do that. So we really need to distinguish those 3 things. Do you guys want to take a minute and talk about those 3 different kinds of meetings and how to effectively have them? Like, what should be happening at a team sales meeting? Should we be coaching individuals? Should we be running individual funnel reviews in a team meeting? Mike's going to burst.
No. I mean, like every one of those meetings I've ever been a part of when I was an individual contributor is I hoped someone like me was talking first and took 25 minutes of that 30 minutes meeting so I didn't have to share my information. Right? Like, it's just, let's hope.
So
Please call on Daryl.
I think it becomes a shaming program versus anything that's productive. And I definitely think one-on-ones for that kind of thing. Now, success stories, those I think we should share. And in one-on-ones, we've got success stories. Say, hey, Liz, tell me how that you just closed that really big deal. Or Renee, I just heard you got a conversation with the CEO that we've been trying to get in front of for months. Tell me how you did it. Tell us how you did it. So I think group share is good, but it should all be positive.
So first thing that we agree on is in a team sales meeting is a great story for people to share their successes.
Yep.
Okay. What else should be happening in an effective meeting? What should be happening? Team meeting.
When you're getting stuck. Like, where am I getting stuck? I'm stuck on this deal. I'm running into this thing. Has anybody ever run into something like this? What would you do? Some like team work around a specific challenge.
So it's a great time for a sales leader to say, hey, I keep hearing that people are having trouble with this objection. Let's tackle it as a team. Or, hey, we've got a really big deal coming up. We're stuck. Let's do a team strategy session. Let's all work together. So these are learning opportunities. And yes, sometimes the more senior salespeople feel like they're always coaching the newer salespeople, but that's okay because when we coach, we learn, right? So sharing successes, solving problems as a team, or strategizing as a team. What other good things should be happening in team sales meetings?
This is a big time for that communicate. Will you bring that frequency back up? Just because you brought it up last week doesn't mean you bring it up. It's like you find a different way, you do it a different way, you say it differently, you tell a different story, right? But you keep repeating some of those things that you've talked about in the past, and you make sure that you're connecting what's going on in the company to what's going on in sales. If there's a product change, if you have a release coming out, if you have so your team is not caught short and doesn't know when they hit the street what's going on, and somebody else learns from somewhere else, right? Like those are some of the things that you really need to make sure are getting across to the whole team.
Okay, so two things. One is product changes, product training, anything that we can do to help the team be better at understanding the products, product changes, technology, whatever it is they're selling. The other is, what is our strategic direction? Where are we going? How does this impact you? What things are happening? And continuing to reinforce, this is our strategy, this is where we're going. What else should be happening?
Yeah, but even I would also just say even things that aren't traditionally sales and product, right? Like, let's say your CEO recently left. Okay,
yes.
Like we're going to get a lot of questions about this. We've had several leaders change. We've had a hack. We've had whatever the crisis communications is, because your salespeople are going to get that. They're going to be the front line for most of that ire. They're going to get it all, right? And so they need to have some sort of prep and some talking points and be able to ask questions. I think that's one of the places where I see like huge failures. And then the salespeople feel like they've just been thrown to the wolves.
Anything else?
I mean, I think there's the class there to always share a win. You know, why did you win this deal? What were the objections you had? You know, how did you handle that competitor? How did you respond to this objection? Because clearly our solution is weaker than the competition. You overcame it. So just some group learning so the other reps can learn and take that away and apply themselves. It also just leads to great discussion. Great discussion.
This is kind of building on Renee's point around communication across functional teams. One of the things I like to do is share examples of where we're hurting other aspects of the business and where we're helping other aspects of the business. And a really good example of this is we don't put enough of the right information inside the CRM so that the rest of the team can invoice customers properly. We don't have billing contacts in there as an example. And now we're asking the rep to go and chase money. When we can communicate broadly to the team what other functional areas are doing in the business and how we're either helping or hurting them, people start to feel more like this is more than just them out there selling something or working with customers. There are internal customers that we have to work with as well. And I'm a big fan of inviting those internal customers to these kind of meetings and having marketing share something, or having finance share something, or having operations share something, whatever that is, so that sales is not this black box inside the organization.
And two-way communication around that, right? So that also gives sales the opportunity to say, hey, marketing, when you're doing this, it's creating this problem for me. So this two-way communication and planning that in for a discussion. I love that.
Hey, marketing, we love that stuff you're doing. Could you do more? That's what you meant to say, right?
That's what I meant to say.
I mean, I'd even go one step further, because often marketing or product management or product marketing, whomever, or even customer success, they're sending messages to the sales team to say, hey, this is this new feature coming out. Hey, there's a launch coming out, whatever it might be, right? And they can't get time on the calendar to have a face-to-face all the time. So they'll do it, with a pre-recorded video, or they'll do it with an email or whatever, a battle card, etc. I think it's the sales leadership's responsibility in those meetings to physically say, did you read this? And then test them. So others can go, shit, please, as Mike said, please don't come to me. Keep talking because I didn't read that and I'm screwed. In other words, it's up to sales leadership to reinforce the support that marketing and the other teams are trying to give sales to be successful. Because most sales reps will say, well, I don't have time to read that because I'm busy closing deals. And that's just bullshit.
Yes. And it's true. We've got to get sales to both toe the line and to, we need to get them to toe the line, and we need to reward them for doing well. And we need both. Mike, were you going to say something? No. Go ahead.
That was Renee. I was going to add in that reward category what you and Daryl are talking about. I think it's really important to have leaderboards and rewards for people doing the things that you need sales to do that aren't sales, right? Like if you have sales enablement tools, if you have battle cards and things like that, if you have tech that you've purchased, keeping track of how many people are actually using it, recognizing them for using the tools that you've gotten them. I don't mean shaming other people. I mean, the same thing as a good sales success story, right? Making sure that you're highlighting people who are using the tools so they can explain how it helps them, so that you can say, look, these people are meeting their goals and they say they're using these tools. We got these because, you said you wanted some additional help. Kind of using that kind of gamification for the things that feel like distractions from sales, I find helps a lot. And here's the other thing. A lot of these meetings are not fun. The more you have these like gamification, these like turn your quiz into a quiz show, right, Daryl? Like whatever you can do that makes it fun, that makes people want to come in. I mean, I really like walking into the room and music playing, right? Like anything to make it fun so that people are like, oh, we have the sales meeting today. I don't mean to make it sound too Pollyanna, but I want to feel like they want to come because they know they're going to leave with something important.
This is why I'm not in marketing.
So one of the things that we do in our weekly, we have a bi-weekly pipeline call, but we have a weekly sales meeting. And one of the things that we share in there is we have two different sellers that share what we call a big idea. And this is really, how do you start to get the customer to think differently about our organization? Because it's real easy when you have a broad portfolio to get pigeonholed and people view you one way and one way only. How do you change that? Well, you're only going to change that if you start to open their eyes to different things. So these are sort of pushing the envelope sort of things, at least within that client context. And then everybody gets to see that presentation, it's 5 to 10 minutes, 2 different people do it every week. And you start to get a different perspective of, hey, I hadn't even thought about that because I didn't know that capability existed, or I didn't know that we did that, or, oh, I'd heard about that, but I didn't, but now it's more real because I hear somebody A that's in my role or similar role that's doing that within a customer that looks like my customer. And so, it gives me a different thing to go talk about. And then I can drill into those details and get a little bit more information. So I think those types of things in those meetings can be really, really helpful.
Okay. I love that. Let's jump over to individual meetings. What should a pipeline review or funnel review look like? What should a one-on-one? What does coaching sound like? Let's talk about some of this, because I think this is one of the places we fall down so badly. Brenda, were you going to say something?
Oh, I think that one-on-ones are absolutely vital, but I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier, maybe even on another podcast, where we talked about how each person is motivated differently. And I think each pipeline should be coached a little bit differently. So there are some people that are just volume prospectors and they throw a lot on the wall and hope that some sticks. And there are some people that are much more purposeful in who's going in their pipeline and how they're having conversations. And I don't think you can measure everyone by the same KPIs. And this is a kind of a big controversy when you're looking at CRM reports and you're looking at we need the right data to be able to compare what's happening. But for me, I'm a quality over quantity. I may only have 4 or 5 conversations with prospects this week, where someone else might have 30, but my 4 or 5 are really the right people in the right place. And so they're more likely to close, and it's a better use of my time. But if a manager, my boss, obviously, right? No, but if there's a manager over me and the guy sitting next to me and they're like, hey, Bryn, you have a light pipeline, that is not necessarily the best way to coach, right? So I think that you have to really come up with custom coaching. Now, I know that we need data and I know that we need it across the board, but I think you have to look at, so for me, I'm always talking about LinkedIn and connections. So I'm from this perspective, and you can use it any way you want, is for us, how many new of the right connections is someone connecting with? How many of those are becoming first conversations? And how many of those are actually a lead that's going to be put into the pipeline? So more than how many calls did you make, or so I think when you're doing pipeline review, it needs to be custom to each individual.
So let me just jump in for a second, Mike, and then I want to hear what you're going to say. So when we're looking at a pipeline or a funnel, which I like to call it a funnel, we have some KPIs that are mega data, right? So this is across our company. This is what we see. And after a while, we can basically see we have this many, you have to have this many in prospecting in order to have this many close. So we have a standard across the organization, which is a really good bar to start measuring by. But what Bryn's saying is, but if I have one person and I look at their history, and their history is their funnel is a different shape and it's perfectly effective for getting the results they need, then why am I beating them up about something that doesn't matter? So let's talk a little bit more about, how do you run a funnel review? So when I run a funnel review, I start by saying, what's the shape of your funnel? So we know this is the math that works for the organization. This is the shape of your funnel. This is what it should look like. If it's somebody who's different, then I need to look at the shape of their funnel. I want to look at the velocity, how quickly are things moving through? Is there stuff that gets stuck? Is that a certain kind of thing that gets stuck? Is stuff transitioning from stage to stage the way it should? Or is everything getting stuck at a certain stage? So I want to look at sort of these shape questions. I want to look at velocity and flow. But I also want to look at, when I'm looking at a funnel, I look at the entire funnel. So I might do a weekly bottom of the funnel review and a monthly entire funnel review. And then I'm talking about, well, what's going on up here? What's your next activity? Do you have activities? Do you have something besides follow up so you actually know what to do? I'm actually looking at the activities. I'm looking at the individual deals in addition to looking at the overall numbers. So, are you guys, do you see the same thing? Do you have other thoughts? How do you do a funnel review? Silence. Did I nail it, or did I miss something there, Mike?
I care about two numbers, and that's it. And it's evolved over time. But my two numbers, they're iterations of it, so that's where things start to get a little bit more complex. But my two numbers are pipeline created, pipeline developed. What did we put in? How did it move forward?
Okay.
What did we put in? How did it move forward? What did we put in? How did it move forward?
Just so if you're not putting it in, it's not moving forward.
That's it. And if we're not putting it in, then we solve for the problem behind not putting it in. If it's not moving forward, then we solve for the problem just before it. Now, moving forward is all good. Moving forward out is good. It's not bad. I'd like it to move forward out and won rather than move forward out and lost. But it's how is it moving forward? And if either of those two numbers are being solved for properly, then everything else is kind of working out. There are some other things that you can look at, like percentage of probability across your total pipeline. And how is that percentage changing over time? Ideally, that percentage should increase over a period of time as we get closer to the end of a period of time, might be for the current year. But if we ever get to a point where that percentage is too high, now we've got a big problem, because there's likely going to be a gap at some point in the future where we hadn't put enough stuff in to keep that percentage down. So pipeline created, pipeline developed, and then probability of forecast over the total pipeline would be the third number if you had to have three, and I typically like threes, but pipeline created, pipeline developed are my two big ones.
So I'll go with a different angle. I love everything that Mike said because he's just a rock star. And I said that without laughing. I just want to be clear on that. There's two things that we need to talk about. One is this is a two-way meeting. So it's not just about, what Mike was saying, which is he's, what's come in and what's going on and what's being developed. That's the sales manager asking the rep. I want the rep to actually prepare content on what they want out of that meeting every single week. This is where I'm stuck. This is where I need help. Here's a dashboard or two of my activity of the last week, whatever it might be. I want them to invest time into them, make that meeting work. That's the first part. Second part is I want the actual sales manager to actually be structured in how they do it. So it's great they're asking those questions, but this is supposed to be collaborative. Too many of those sales leaders go in and they interrogate, and then the rep just shuts down. That's the first part. The next thing is often those sales leaders have not taken the time to look at the data, to see the activity. So why are they asking the interrogating questions? Because they didn't look at the data, so they're trying to get the answers now. So the sales leader also has to prep for that meeting. Both parties need to prep for that meeting. The questions need to be very focused. If they're too broad, the rep doesn't know how to answer. 9 times out of 10, they give the wrong answer and the sales manager gets upset. And then you have frustration and discord. And finally, I see this happen too many times where the sales leader blows off that one-on-one because they have competing meetings, as opposed to making that meeting sacrosanct. They cannot cancel that meeting. They have nothing else. They and their team are responsible for revenue. This is critical. Everything else can wait. So that's just a different angle to complement what Mike was saying.
I love that nobody skips that meeting. And I hear it all the time. I've got something else to do. I can't do this. I've got a client meeting. Unless really and truly that is the only time the client can ever meet with you. Okay, but that's not true every week. It's not true all the time. And if your salespeople are skipping their meetings, it's because you're beating up on them.
Well, and I would sit there and say that if whoever is needing to cancel that meeting has to be the person that's responsible for rescheduling that meeting for that week, unless it's holiday or something like that, right? Like if you're out for vacation, then so be it. But like outside of that, you need to reschedule that meeting to occur that week, whoever is the one that's asking to move it. So that way it's still happening. It shows that it's a priority, and it doesn't get this thing of, oh, well, I'll kick the can down the road for a week on either side.
Yeah. Okay. So we have about 1 more minute and we need to change topics, but what does good coaching sound like? And what does bad coaching sound like? Because I think coaching is hard. What's good coaching sound like? Go ahead, Brent.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's going to be different for every person that's in front of you. But the goal of good coaching is that there is movement in the right direction after the coaching session, that there's a good, it's not just, hey, I feel good about what I'm doing, but I know exactly what I'm going to do to move deals forward.
I know exactly what I'm going to do to move deals forward. I had to repeat that. This is really important.
Yeah, that's helpful.
What's good coaching sound like, you guys? What do we need to do as coaches?
What's the definition of coaching? Like what's
Go ahead.
What's coaching mean?
You tell me. What's coaching?
So, I mean, if you think about coaching, what's a coach? A coach is a motor coach. It's a vessel that you put people in to get them from one place to another, right? That's a coach. So if we agree that that's what a coach is, and moving things from one place to another, good coaching helps someone move from one place to another. The challenge is figuring out what's the one place that they're at versus the one place that we want them to go, and is that the right place, and who decides where they want to go. So good coaching, from my view, helps people move from A to B, whatever A to B is.
Right. Well, I mean, and A to B could be, hey, if you're in that motor coach and you're on the side of the road, maybe the first thing is we have to get you back on the right road, right?
Right. Or then, on the road at all.
Then we can, and then hopefully heading in the right direction, and then we can start to apply, the right foot and see if we can get some speed behind that.
And let's not try to get them all the way to the end right at the beginning, because we're gonna lose a lot of people, and I think that's probably, it's one of the biggest mistakes that we make with coaching, is we try to go too fast, or we don't do things in the right order, or we lean toward the thing that we're really good or worked for us on. So we try to coach to that as a way to help move people through.
It's like the person who goes to therapy once and is surprised that it didn't magically fix whatever the problem was.
Well, and I think what's really important here is coaching isn't telling. In fact, I often find myself, when I'm in a coaching session, stop and say, I'm going to take my coach hat off for a second, and I'm going to actually tell you what I think you need to do. Right? So when I'm coaching effectively, I'm guiding them to come up with their own answer. If they come up with the right answers, they are much more likely to embrace it, to remember it, to be able to do it. If I just keep telling you what to do, I'm telling you what to do. I'm not coaching you. Swing the ball, swing the bat, hit the ball, swing the bat is not coaching.
You end up you end up forcing yourself to be the answer, right? You're not equipping them to do it themselves. So every time they're going to have to come back to you
and ask what to do.
And it's like, that's so counterproductive for both parties.
You have to ask the question. I think you have to ask the question, like, what kind of coach are we? Are we a swing coach? Okay. If I'm a swing coach, there's going to be things that I
have
see.
To stop for a second. If you're listening to us, you cannot see that Mike is holding up his golf club. Go ahead, Mike.
Typically, I'm holding a version of a golf club most of the time, or a whiteboard marker. But if I'm a swing coach, it might not be, hey, so tell me a little bit about what you want to do in your game, and where do you want to go, and what are you trying to accomplish, and all these other things. And I ask a lot of questions. I'm going to observe. I'm going to see the action. I'm going to see the activity. I'm going to see, hey, you know what? There's something that's happening in your hand position at the transition from backswing to swinging through the ball. And all we're going to do is make one slight adjustment. That's an adjustment that we're making as a coach to that specific thing. And it could be an adjustment, the type of questions that a rep is asking in discovery. And
wait, Mike, hang on a second, because that's a try this, right? That's what the coach is saying. Let's move your hands a little. Try this.
Yes. So, and then when we go through that, some people could say I'm training in that environment. I mean, I could argue maybe there is some training. We're starting to retrain the body on where it is and what position it's supposed to be in. And this is where this whole training, coaching, and mentoring thing becomes really complicated. They can fit in different places, but I think the piece, there's sometimes coaching is let me ask questions and help you get there. Another one is, like Liz just said, try this. Let's see what happens.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up our this session and get ready for our next one. So if you enjoyed this conversation, join us in our next podcast.
And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.